what is going on, everybody? It is your boy, HunnyBunny. So, with all the craziness going on revolving around The Last of Us Part 2, I thought it was perfect for me to drop my review. This game was unapologetically real and hardcore, and this was expressed not only in its gameplay, but more prominently in its story. And I think it was all done beautifully. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was the game's graphics. Now, when I tell you that these are some of the most beautiful, lush environments I've ever seen in a video game, I'm not lying. It is by far the best looking game on PS4 that I've ever seen. Facial animations are so realistic, and that doesn't just stay within the cutscenes. When Ellie goes for a gruesome stealth kill, her facial expressions change in the game to reflect the brutality of the act. You can see her wince as she stabs an enemy. It's something that you wouldn't really notice if you hadn't looked at it, but once you do, it really adds to the experience. In combat, animations are fluid and realistic. As Ellie climbs and quickly squeezes through corridors, running away from enemies, it comes off as being very natural and fits in the gameplay well. The animations in melee combat are so elegant and seamless that you would think it's a cutscene. As Ellie, you can fluidly dodge attacks and then immediately transition into slamming the enemy's head against a nearby wall or surface. It's so real and brutal. Personally, I think level design was done very well. It fits into the gameplay mechanics while also being natural. Levels offer different routes and ways to escape enemies and outsmart them. They don't feel like typical game levels you see in other games. They literally look like normal areas you would explore in real life. The environments are ripe with detail. Despite taking place in one area for most of the game, a variety of places are explored. Whether that be underground tunnels, abandoned city streets, or uninhabited buildings, they all are unique and vibrant in their own way. The atmosphere is sold everywhere you go, and you are constantly reminded of the circumstances of the world you're in. While on the topic of the atmosphere, I have to point out that the sound in this game is spectacular. The soundtrack was amazing, especially during emotional scenes. The background music really fit the tone, and during gameplay it didn't drown out what was happening on screen. The sounds of the enemies stick out the most to me. The haunting sound of the clickers against the dead silence, and especially the runner enemy type. They're humans that are still in their early phases of infection, so when they cry out, they still sound like people. It's very disturbing. And when you kill human enemies, they let out horrific cries of pain that are hard to ignore in combat. These might seem like nothing, but they really add to the brutality of the acts you are committing. Some NPCs even cry out the names of their fallen comrades, really driving home the fact that you are killing people who have lives and relationships now gone because of what you've done. So now I kind of want to focus in on the gameplay. Now, this one is probably the weakest point for me. In The Last of Us 2, there's a heavy emphasis on stealth combat, which you'll want to try and be as efficient as possible when taking out enemies, as bullets and resources to make weapons are pretty limited. You can craft tools like bombs, explosive arrows, and different melee weapons. More variations of these can be unlocked as you upgrade different attributes that Ellie has. The melee combat, as I said before, was very fun. It was smooth and it was very satisfying to pull off. It would sometimes be a little bit frustrating how it would kind of take you out of the combat to put you in quick time events, or you would get interrupted by bullets and have to reset. But other than that, it wasn't too bad. Overall, all the guns felt good to use, especially the shotguns that always packed a hard punch. And especially when you land headshots with these weapons, results in a gross ass effect. Stealth is by far the standout here, as it was incredibly tense when trying to sneak around and attempt to take out enemies one by one. The intensity ramps up when you're caught and you have to escape with bullets flying past and even dogs chasing after you. It was always fun trying to find a new place to hide so that you could get the jump on the enemy. Honestly, I was indifferent to The Last of Us 1's gameplay. I think it got the job done to keep me engaged and want to continue the story, however it was pretty simplistic. This is still reflected in The Last of Us Part 2, but it was with a nice fresh coat of paint. So now to talk about this story. That's why we're all here. The Last of Us 2 may be a game, but it is definitely much more of a story interwoven with gameplay here and there. And personally, I believe Naughty Dog has another winner. So the story takes place 5 years after the events of the first one. Ellie and Joel have now found themselves in the quiet life of Jackson, doing patrols and not really living the scary, unpredictable life that was the first game. She has a whole new set of friends now that she goes on patrols and shares memories with. Everything seems quiet and nice, until something horrible happens that sets Ellie out on a dark path. I don't want to spoil the story quite yet, so I'll leave that for a later section. This game is a true sequel in that it directly deals with the actions made in the first game. This game's story revolves around a lot of different themes, two of the standouts being hate and the endless cycle that comes with violence. Now, none of these things are necessarily new or revolutionary, however, they're conveyed in such an emotional and real way that you can't help but be captivated and engrossed in the story. I don't want to tell you how to think, but I found it very important to go into this game's story with an open mind. This game will ask you to really put yourself in the shoes of its characters, and it pulls it off very well. This game evoked emotion in me even more than the first game did. I found myself frustrated and conflicted by the actions of the characters, but also sympathetic and understanding. The Last of Us 2 doesn't shy away from its themes, but doesn't shove it in your face either. It plays out naturally and lets you decide how to feel about it. This is all done through its characters, beautiful cutscenes, and interesting dialogue. I would not expect to find the story you saw in The Last of Us 1. That was much more of a personal story between Joel and Ellie, whereas this game takes a look at several characters and how their actions and relationships affect each other. You're almost guaranteed to feel differently than me about the directions this game takes, and that's what makes it so great. It's a story that constantly makes you question how you feel, and I loved every bit of it. So now I want to get into the spoilers. So I'm telling you right now, if you don't want to see spoilers, click ahead. Now before I say any of this, I would just like to emphasize these are my opinions on the story. If you feel differently, I respect your opinion and I encourage you to comment below. So like I said, the game starts off lighthearted and familiar. You're reintroduced to Ellie and Joel, and then within the next 2 hours of gameplay, Joel dies. This new character named Abby literally beats the shit out of him with a golf club slowly and painfully. The deep connection I formed with Joel in the first game serves as a really powerful death here in the second game, and it makes me hate this Abby girl more than anything. So I understand why Ellie sets out on a path of revenge. As she goes and hunts down each member of Abby's group, I'm right there with her. This journey can only be described as brutal as she murders each member of the group and also puts her friends in danger as they tag along with her. But Ellie's determined to keep going. She becomes more disturbed as she has to go as far as torturing and beating the members for information and even killing one that happened to be pregnant. Then the game does something that a lot of people didn't expect, unless you hadn't seen the leaks. You flip and play as Abby. And of course your first thought is, I hate this person. Why in the hell would I want to play as them? But as you continue down Abby's path, you start to see the circumstances around Joel's death weren't so black and white. This game does a lot to play with parallels. For example, both of these women's stories take place at the exact same time, just in different places. Another comparison can even be drawn to Abby and Joel's character. Both are people who have experienced great loss in their life, making them closed off and violent, then through bonds they form with younger characters, change and become better because of it. As you play as Abby, you get to know her group and see that they aren't as bad as you initially thought. And then you immediately become mortified, knowing what is about to happen to them within the next 24 hours, as Ellie will eventually hunt them down. The game does such a great job at humanizing Abby and her friends that you understand her decisions. They may have caused Ellie great pain and loss, but you understand and ultimately form a bond with her. This makes the story more gripping as you have sympathy for both Ellie and Abby as they violently face off against each other. The great themes that this game is trying to tackle only work and are done so well through this parallel experience. You can't help but feel for both of them. I strongly encourage people to give this story a try. It takes a lot of risk that honestly I don't think could be pulled off by many people, and it provides for an emotional journey that I haven't experienced on any other game. Overall, I think the gameplay is satisfying enough to get you from point A to point B, and honestly, even if it wasn't that great, I still think the story is completely worth the money. For me, this game is a solid 9 golf clubs out of 10. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that cute shit. Until the next one, it's been your boy HunnyBunny. Stay sexy, y'all.